It started with a message from a girl she barely knew, someone from college. A vague, pitiful, "Hey, I think you should see this." Attached was a link. Ava's heart sank before her finger even touched the screen. Something in the air shifted. She knew. The link opened to a forum post, one of those vile corners of the internet where anonymity made monsters out of men. Her name wasn't there, not directly, but her face was. Her body. Posed. Intimate. Raw. It was the photo she'd taken in soft light, back when love still felt like trust. She remembered the moment, hair tousled, biting her lip, sending it to Liam like a secret gift. Back then, it had felt daring. Now, it was a noose. The thread was filled with comments. Disgusting. Crude. Hundreds of them. Some knew her, most didn't. But the tone was always the same. Possession. Like she was meat in a marketplace. She couldn't breathe. She closed the browser, reopened it, closed it again. Then sat on the floor with her knees pulled to her chest, listening to her own breathing break apart. Liam had promised. Promised he'd never show them. Promised he deleted everything after they broke up. But Liam always smiled when he lied. She didn't call anyone that night. Not her mom. Not her best friend. Not even Rachel, who would have burned down the internet on her behalf. Instead, Ava stared at the ceiling fan turning slowly overhead and felt her skin go cold, like it didn't belong to her anymore. Like he had taken it, piece by piece, and handed it to the world. But rage has a funny way of showing up in grief's shadow. By morning, her tears were dry and her jaw was clenched. She sat at her kitchen table, opened her laptop again, and didn't flinch this time. She opened every post, every forum, every link. She took screenshots, saved links, started a spreadsheet. Her heart pounded with each scroll, but she didn't look away. He wanted to humiliate her. Instead, he handed her the weapon. And she was going to use it. Not just for her dignity, for every woman who had been turned into digital prey. For every girl who sent something in love and got dragged through hell for it. She clicked open a new document. At the top, she wrote, "Evidence against Liam Carter." Then she poured herself a cup of black coffee and started dragging screenshots into the folder, one by one, without trembling. The war had begun, and Ava Mercer wasn't losing. The screenshots piled up faster than she expected. Her desktop became a battlefield of red flags, images, usernames, timestamps. She tracked them like a forensic analyst, numb to the nausea that twisted in her stomach every time her own body stared back at her from the screen. Liam had shared them with more than just the void of the internet. She recognized one of his friends from college. Jake, the guy who always made those jokes that weren't really jokes. He'd commented under one of the posts, using an alias so flimsy it was almost insulting. Knew she was hiding a body like that under all those sweaters. Ava clenched her fists so tightly her nails left crescent moons in her palms. This wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation. And it was organized. Liam hadn't made a mistake. He'd made a choice. A conscious, gleeful, rotting choice to turn her into a trophy. A thing. Something to pass around like a party favor when he got bored. The same man who once kissed her bare shoulders and whispered she was the only person who ever made him feel safe. He'd weaponized that softness, mocked it, sold it. She didn't cry this time. She stared at her reflection in the laptop screen. Her own eyes, wide but steady, stared back. She was still here. Still Ava. And he was still Liam. And now, she had proof. It wasn't just the images. It was the screenshots of his texts. Screenshots she'd almost deleted out of heartbreak weeks ago. Back when she still cared what he thought. Now they were relics. Evidence. Little pieces of poison with his name stamped across every bubble. She's acting like she didn't love the attention. Bro, she was crazy in bed, LOL. Wait till you see this one. No regrets. Dumb bitch shouldn't have trusted me. She highlighted that one. Printed it. Liam Carter, you absolute idiot. Ava started backing up files to 3 different encrypted drives, created folders, password protected them, labeled each one like a lawyer might. Like someone preparing for war. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. She was taking back her story. He thought she'd crawl into the dark and stay there, that she'd drown in shame while he went on with his life, cocky and untouched. But Ava wasn't ashamed. Not anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was documenting. And the more she saw, the clearer it became. He didn't just pick the wrong woman to cross. He picked the one who remembered everything. The fallout came quietly at first. A client canceled a meeting. No explanation. Just a cold email and an invoice dispute she'd never seen before. Ava stared at the screen for a few minutes, rereading the message like maybe she'd misunderstood. But she hadn't. People were finding out. Later that day, her phone buzzed. A friend from high school she hadn't spoken to in years sent a voice memo. Her tone all forced sympathy wrapped in voyeuristic concern. "I just saw something really disturbing online and... Is it true? Is that you?" Ava deleted the message. She didn't have the energy to teach another woman how to care without making it about herself. The worst came that evening. Her mother called. She picked up, thinking maybe the old instinct of hiding it all could be suppressed for once. But the second she heard the soft, strained, "Sweetheart," it hit her. Her mom knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. "I saw something," her mother said, voice trembling. "Someone from church forwarded it to your aunt. She said someone's been sharing things." Ava sat on the edge of her bed, trying not to spiral. Her mother was trying to be kind, but even in her gentleness, Ava could hear the undertone. Worry, confusion, maybe even a touch of shame. "I'm handling it," Ava said, sharper than she meant. "Please don't ask me to explain what you saw. Please don't repeat it." There was a long silence. Then her mother cleared her throat. "Do you want me to call him?" Ava blinked. "Call him? Are you serious?" "I just thought, maybe if he realized the damage." "He knows the damage," Ava said flatly. "He caused it. On purpose." Another silence. Then softer, "What are you going to do?" Ava looked out the window. The city lights flickered back at her like 1,000 watchful eyes. "I'm going to make sure he never does it to anyone else again." She hung up and sat still for a long time. This was the cost. She knew that. Being violated didn't just come with emotional shrapnel. It came with whispers, with people making decisions for you without asking, with doors closing quietly while everyone pretended it wasn't personal. But Ava wasn't folding. If anything, the coldness sharpened her. By midnight, she had finished compiling her files into a new folder. She renamed it Liam Carter Lawsuit. Then she opened her browser and searched for the best female-led law firm in the city. Because this wasn't just about her anymore. This was war, and Ava Mercer was ready to drag it into the light. The law office was tucked into a quiet block between 2 cafes, the kind of place that didn't scream for attention but demanded respect. Frosted glass, minimalist brass signage, a receptionist with eyes like a lie detector. Ava didn't dress to impress, just black jeans, a blazer, no makeup. She wasn't here to perform. Her name was called, and she followed a sharply dressed associate through the hall into a corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, degrees framed behind the desk. The woman who stood to greet her didn't smile, didn't soften her voice. She just extended a hand and said, "I'm Julia Vega. Sit. Let's get to work." Ava sat, and for the first time since this entire nightmare began, she felt her shoulders drop. Julia listened. No interruptions. No expressions of pity or surprise. Just the occasional nod as Ava laid it all out. How Liam had shared the photos, the group messages, the forums, the harassment, the screenshots, the fallout. The silence from people who once called themselves her friends. When Ava finished, Julia leaned back and crossed her arms. First things first, we have a case. Ava blinked. That easy? Nothing about this is easy, Julia said. But yes, it's clear-cut. You trusted someone with intimate content and they distributed it without your consent. That's illegal. Period. Ava inhaled slowly. It felt like breathing for the first time in weeks. Julia clicked her pen and started listing things out. We'll file a civil suit for invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and non-consensual pornography distribution. We'll also contact the platforms and demand takedowns under your rights. If this gets traction, we'll open the door to criminal charges, especially if any of this crosses state lines or financial fraud is involved. Ava blinked. Fraud? You said he bragged about monetizing startup investments and showed private photos to secure deals? Ava nodded slowly. I thought he was just showing off. Sounds like something else, Julia said. You'd be surprised how many men leave fingerprints while they're flexing their ego. Ava looked at her. Is it wrong that I want him to burn? Julia didn't flinch. I don't care what you want, Ava. I care what we can prove. She handed Ava a folder. Fill this out. Send me everything. Screenshots, audio, texts, don't filter. The more we have, the better I can bury him. Ava stood, folder in hand, and for the first time, she didn't feel like a victim walking into a courtroom. She felt like a storm in heels. Because Liam thought he could break her quietly. Now she was going to ruin him. Legally. Ava hadn't opened the old iCloud backups in years. They were digital time capsules from when things with Liam were still good. Or what she'd told herself was good. But now, with Julia's folder open on her desk and the law finally behind her, she was ready to dig through the rot. It started small. A few selfies. Voice notes from Liam whispering that he missed her. Ava hovered her finger over the delete button but paused. Julia had said not to filter. Even the things that felt innocent might prove intent later. Then she found the folder marked Saved Messages. She hadn't made it. Inside were dozens of screenshots Liam had sent her. Conversations with his friends, group chats, snippets of emails. He used to brag constantly. Showed off everything. Deals he was making. People he'd screwed over. Clients he manipulated. Even when she told him it made her uncomfortable, he'd laugh and say, Relax, it's not like I'm recording a confession. But he was. One screenshot stood out. It was a message from Liam to a potential investor. A pitch on the surface. But at the bottom was a link, and next to it he'd typed, She's part of the package. LOL. Keep it quiet. Ava's stomach turned. She clicked the link. It was expired. But the implication was clear. He'd sent something. Her? As leverage. As currency. Another screenshot showed a group chat titled The Vault. Names she didn't recognize. Men. All of them reacting with laughing emojis, flames, crude remarks. And right in the middle, an image. Blurred in the preview, but Ava knew it. Her. He didn't just violate her privacy. He built a business out of it. She searched her voice memos next, not expecting much. But then she heard his voice, lazy and slurring. They think I care about NDAs. They don't even read them. I could sell half this stuff and nobody'd stop me. Another recording. She sent it. That's consent. That's the game. You gotta be smart with women like her. Classy on the outside, dirty in the inbox. Her hand trembled as she labeled each file, date-stamped them, and dragged them into the evidence folder. Liam hadn't just exposed her. He'd confessed. Again and again. And he didn't even know it. When she emailed the files to Julia, her message was short. Subject, for the kill shot. No tears, no second-guessing, just facts. He'd turned her trust into a weapon. Now she was turning his ego into hers. The cease and desist letter was beautiful. Crisp white paper. Letterhead embossed with Julia Vega's firm. Language that was equal parts precise and venomous. Ava read it 3 times before she finally smiled. It landed in Liam's inbox on a Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, his Instagram story was a smug little video of him clinking glasses with some tech bro, captioned, "When haters stay mad." Ava watched it once, screenshot it, then forwarded it to Julia. "Is this admissible?" Julia replied 2 minutes later. "Absolutely. He's taunting and documenting his own recklessness. It's gold." That night, he sent her a text. "Liam, you're really trying to make this a thing, huh?" Ava stared at the message. He still didn't get it. Not that she was serious. Not that she had him cornered. Not that every word he typed was another nail. She didn't respond. Let the silence hum like a warning shot. The next morning, Liam emailed Julia directly, thinking, probably, that his charm might sway a woman lawyer, that he could somehow talk his way out, minimize the damage, reframe himself as the misunderstood ex-boyfriend. Julia forwarded the message to Ava without commentary. The subject line read, "What if we settle this privately?" This isn't good for her either. Ava laughed out loud. The arrogance, the audacity, the implication that she was the one who needed to protect her reputation now. That he held the cards. Even now, even with the walls closing in, Liam thought he had power. That was his fatal flaw. He mistook silence for weakness, mistook her decency for hesitation. He hadn't realized yet that she wasn't trying to shame him. She was building a legal guillotine. Quietly, meticulously, one thread at a time. On Saturday, the takedown notices went out to every site hosting her photos. Julia had connections at every major platform. Ava watched as the links went dead, one after another. The internet began to turn. That same evening, she received a DM from a woman she didn't know. "Hey, you don't know me, but I used to date Liam. I think he did something similar to me. If you're taking legal action, I want to help." It was the first of many. Ava didn't reply right away. She just added the message to the evidence folder, highlighted Liam's name, and whispered to herself, "This is the part where it all unravels." And for once, it wouldn't be her. The second woman's message came at 3:14 a.m. Different city, different story, same pattern. Her name was Zoe. She'd dated Liam for about 4 months. He'd charmed her, fast-tracked the relationship, asked for nudes under the guise of trust. Then, when she pulled away, things got ugly. Her images never surfaced, but the threats did. Texts like, "Don't forget what I've got on you." She'd moved cities to get away from him. Ava read the messages with a lump in her throat. Zoe wasn't some cautionary tale. She was next. And if Ava hadn't drawn a line in court, someone else would have eventually ended up right where she did. Or worse. Julia advised her to stay quiet. "Don't reach out too much. Let them come to us. We'll handle the vetting, but every story strengthens your case and weakens his." The law was slow, Ava knew. But justice? It was gathering speed. By week's end, 5 women had come forward, each with screenshots, each with eerily similar patterns. Liam isolating them, requesting photos, making backhanded remarks when they hesitated. And every time they pulled away, he retaliated. Smear campaigns, leaks, digital whispers passed around like gossip-laced poison. But Liam had a new problem now. They were talking. To each other. One created a group chat called The Reclamation. Ava joined it reluctantly, thinking maybe it'd be too much. But it wasn't. It was everything. The first message made her cry. "He tried to destroy us alone. Now we rise together." Zoe dropped an audio recording. Another woman shared a Venmo screenshot with a payment labeled "For Your Silence." One even had a voice memo of Liam laughing about getting away with it every time. Ava compiled it all. Dates, names, files. Julia built a parallel case for a possible class action suit. And yet, Liam still hadn't gone quiet. He posted a vague statement online about false accusations and bitter women. People liked it, shared it. Some even defended him. The internet's double-edged sword. Ava watched the comments roll in. Not another clout chaser. You can't cancel a man for having a past. If she didn't want the pics out, maybe she shouldn't have taken them. Ava didn't respond. Not there. She was responding in court. And when the judge read the full case file, every screenshot, every voice memo, every signed affidavit, they wouldn't be debating morality. They'd be reading facts. Cold. Sharp. Undeniable. And Liam? He'd finally realized that the women he tried to erase had become the ones writing his ending. The courtroom wasn't what she expected. Smaller. Quieter. No dramatic music or gasps from the gallery. Just a judge, a stenographer, 2 attorneys, and a man who used to know every inch of her body now pretending she didn't exist. Ava sat upright, her palms flat against the table. Her heart wasn't racing. Not anymore. She wasn't afraid of what would happen next. She was waiting for it. Because this wasn't about a trial in the future. This was about exposure. Not hers. His. Liam sat across from her in a navy suit that probably cost too much and fit too well for a man about to be dismantled. His jaw was tense, the arrogance leaking just slightly at the corners of his mouth. His lawyer whispered something in his ear. He nodded like this was all a misunderstanding. Like this was some PR inconvenience that would blow over. Ava didn't blink. Julia opened with clarity, a calm, controlled voice. We are filing under the state's civil remedies for non-consensual pornography statute, as well as additional charges of defamation, emotional distress, and cyber harassment. Furthermore, we're preparing a federal complaint under digital abuse laws should it be necessary. She handed over 2 thick binders. Inside, Liam's digital fingerprints, frozen in time. Screenshots of forums, group messages, audio files. A timeline that made his violations inescapably clear. No spin. No, he said, she said. Just timestamps and evidence and damage. Liam's lawyer objected to almost everything, claimed the texts were out of context, argued that Ava had consented to sending the photos. Julia shot back, cool and surgical. Consent to share is not consent to distribute. The judge nodded. He was listening. Liam shifted uncomfortably. His leg bounced. He wouldn't look at her. Ava realized something in that moment. He was scared. Not of prison. Not even of court. He was scared of being powerless. For the first time, he wasn't in control of the narrative. He wasn't the puppet master pulling shame strings from the shadows. He was trapped in a story that wasn't flattering, filtered, or fun. And worse, it was true. When the hearing adjourned, Ava stood slowly. Her knees didn't wobble. Her stomach didn't flip. She walked out of the courtroom, head high, as if every step was crushing the image Liam had tried to replace her with. Outside, a reporter waited. She kept walking. Because this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. And the next time Ava Mercer returned to that courtroom, she wouldn't just be the plaintiff. She'd be the woman who made sure men like Liam never slept peacefully again. Liam's deposition was scheduled for a Friday. Rain tapped against the courthouse windows like a metronome as Ava sat across from him, flanked by Julia on one side and a silent court reporter on the other. A recorder blinked red on the table. Everything said in this room would live forever. He looked worse now. The cocky grin was gone. His tie was crooked. His knuckles were red. Either from nerves or from hitting something he couldn't control. Ava didn't flinch when he looked at her. If anything, she held his gaze a beat too long. Julia began with soft questions. His name, his profession, the company he founded. Then, do you recall being in a relationship with Ava Mercer? He shifted in his seat. Yes. Did she ever give you permission to share intimate photos of her? Silence. No, he said finally, eyes narrowing like he was calculating the least incriminating version of the truth. Did you send those photos to other individuals? I don't recall. Julia slid a printed screenshot across the table. This is a message you sent to a group chat titled The Vault. Can you confirm that this is your phone number? He leaned forward, looked at the image, swallowed. That's mine. And the image shared here, would you say it depicts Ms. Mercer? Pause. It's hard to say. Let me rephrase, Julia said, voice like glass. You sent a nude photograph of Ms. Mercer to a group of men. You labeled it bonus content. Do you deny that? I was drunk, he muttered. Is that a denial? Number, I didn't think it was a big deal. Ava kept her face still, but inside something shifted. He didn't deny it. He didn't even apologize. He just didn't think it was a big deal. Julia continued, methodical as a surgeon. She brought up the audio recordings, the private messages to investors, the payment to one woman with the note, shh. By the time the fourth screenshot was displayed, Liam had stopped trying to act like the smartest man in the room. He looked like what he was. Cornered, small, guilty. When the deposition ended, the court reporter read back his responses. His words sounded worse out loud, like confessions whispered to a mirror too late. Ava stood and gathered her things. She didn't look back at him. He wasn't worth the satisfaction of a final glare. Outside, the rain had stopped. She tilted her face to the sky, let the cold air kiss her cheeks, and exhaled. It wasn't victory yet, but it was coming. And he knew it now? The voice memo was 47 seconds long. She hadn't remembered recording it. It was buried in an old iPad she rarely used, found while she was searching for childhood photos to remind herself that she existed long before Liam. The file was titled, October 19th, Balcony. She played it out of curiosity, and froze. Liam's voice filled the room, slurred but smug, the sound of wine sloshing and the wind in the background. She'll never leave. She thinks I'm her world. It's wild. I could ruin her tomorrow and she'd still crawl back. I mean, I've got her pics, her texts, everything. I own her. Silence. Then his laugh. Ava sat there, iPad in her lap, the air sucked from the room. She remembered that night now. They'd been drinking. He was bragging to someone on a call, pacing the balcony while she lay inside, half asleep. She had hit record because something in her gut told her to. And now, she had it. The kill shot. She emailed it to Julia immediately. Her phone rang 5 minutes later. This changes everything, Julia said, her voice tight with purpose. It's not just revenge porn now. This proves coercion. It proves psychological manipulation. This ? This could land him in prison. Ava sat quietly, the gravity sinking in. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. Because what she felt wasn't joy. It was clarity. He had used her body as a weapon. Now she was using his voice as evidence. When the court admitted the audio file into the case, Liam's team scrambled. They filed motions, tried to get it thrown out, claimed it was private, out of context, unfair. The judge didn't flinch. The jury would hear it. News outlets began circling. Julia handled the press inquiries with surgical control. Ava gave no interviews, no statements. She didn't need to. The tape spoke for itself. Liam went dark on social media. Rumors of investors pulling out started swirling. His startup's Instagram page shut down. Comments disappeared. But the internet remembered. People had heard the tape. They recognized the voice. The man who once felt untouchable had become a warning. And Ava? She wasn't hiding anymore. She stood taller, walked freer. Not because justice had been served, but because she had served it. With patience, with evidence, with the truth he never imagined she'd hold on to. And in doing so, Ava Mercer proved something Liam never understood. She didn't need to take him down with fury. She just had to let him speak. And he did the rest himself. The article dropped on a Monday morning. It wasn't Ava's doing. She had kept her silence, obeyed Julia's instructions, avoided the media storm. But someone had leaked court documents. A journalist had connected the dots. And now, there it was. Front page of a major news site. Tech founder accused of revenge porn, emotional abuse. New audio reveals disturbing power play. Liam's name was in the headline, and so was hers. Ava stared at her phone in bed, the screen illuminating her face in the early light. Her name in bold, her body reduced to a case study, her voice paraphrased, her trauma dissected. She had fought to reclaim control, and now it was gone again. The article was respectful, fact-based, but the comment section wasn't. Why'd she send him pics if she didn't want them shared? Another gold digger crying wolf. Good, these guys need to be exposed. She's a hero. Hero, victim, liar, icon. Everyone had an opinion now. Julia called her minutes later. You okay? Ava nodded, forgetting for a second she couldn't be seen. I didn't want it to be public. I know, Julia said gently, but it was always going to be. This case is too big. You opened a door and now women are lining up behind you. She was right. By noon, Ava had over 50 DMs, some hateful, some grateful, and some desperate. A college student, a military wife, a woman in her 60s who had never told anyone what happened to her in 2004. Each message started the same. I saw your story. Can I ask? What should I do? Ava read them all, heart heavy and fists clenched. She never asked to become a symbol. But the story had grown beyond her now. It was its own wave, and she could either ride it or be drowned by it. She called Julia back. If I speak, it has to be on my terms. No tabloids, no twisting it into clickbait. I'll handle it, Julia promised. You'll have a platform, not a spotlight. Say the word and we'll make sure it's your voice that's heard, not theirs. Ava walked to the mirror, looked at herself. No makeup, no filters, just a woman who had been broken, bent and buried and clawed her way back. She touched the glass, then whispered, Let's speak. Not for sympathy, not even for herself, but because silence had protected men like Liam for too long. And now it was her story, her name, her terms. The interview was filmed in a quiet studio. No bright lights, no makeup chair. Just Ava, a soft-lit backdrop, and a woman journalist who didn't ask the wrong kind of questions. No, why did you send him the photos? No, were you two in love? Just the facts, the pain, and the strength that followed. Ava spoke slowly at first, hands folded in her lap. I didn't come here to destroy someone. I came here to take back what was mine. My dignity, my privacy, my power. The journalist nodded, giving space, not pressure. When I sent those photos, Ava continued, it was in a moment of trust. Trust I now know was never real. But that doesn't mean I was wrong to trust. It means he was wrong to exploit it. They talked about Liam, not in depth, not in revenge, but in exposure. His behavior, not his character. His patterns, not his excuses. Ava laid it all out. The manipulation, the digital trails, the audio, the lawsuit. Then the journalist asked, softly, Do you think justice will be enough? Ava paused. No, she said honestly. Because there's no undoing what was done. No way to erase the thousands of eyes that saw what was never meant for them. But justice isn't about erasing. It's about redefining. And I've done that. The clip aired 2 days later. It went viral in hours, not because Ava cried, not because she screamed, but because she spoke like a woman who had nothing left to lose and everything left to say. The headlines changed. No longer leaked nudes scandal. Now, survivor of digital abuse fights back and wins. Other women started going public. A singer, a teacher, a mother. Women who had stayed quiet for years now had a face to point to, a voice to echo. Ava Mercer wasn't just reclaiming her story. She was rewriting the rulebook. By the end of the week, Julia informed her that a congressional committee on digital abuse had requested her statement. You're becoming the case study, Julia said. They want to know what happened and how to stop it from happening again. Ava sat on her balcony that night, wrapped in a sweater, city lights flickering below her. She thought of who she used to be. The girl who blushed while sending a photo, heart fluttering. The girl who believed love was protection. And then she thought of who she was now. Not broken, not bitter, but unshakable. Because the internet tried to shame her. And she answered with truth. The courtroom was packed. Not with cameras or reporters, Julia had ensured the press stayed outside, but with energy, tension, breath held in chests. Ava sat still, back straight, palms flat on the table. Across from her, Liam didn't look up. He'd stopped looking at her altogether. The judge cleared his throat and began to read the verdict. Ava heard every word. Every syllable felt like a brick lifted off her shoulders. Liability, confirmed. Distribution of non-consensual material, confirmed. Emotional distress, confirmed. Damages, awarded. 6 figures, and a permanent injunction that barred Liam from ever contacting her again, online or off. His platforms would remain suspended. His business was already bleeding investors. And his name, his polished startup founder name, was now legally tied to what he'd done. When the judge finished, the silence was thick. Then the gavel struck. Ava didn't cry. She didn't cheer. She just exhaled. Julia leaned over. "You won." Ava nodded. "I know." But it wasn't just about winning. It wasn't even about the money, which she'd already decided would go toward a fund for victims of digital abuse. It was about something bigger. Closure? Number justice? Closer. But mostly it was about proof. Proof that her story mattered. That silence wasn't the only option. That shame wasn't a life sentence. As she walked out of the courtroom, Liam brushed past her on his way out. Still no eye contact. Still too proud to flinch. But he looked smaller now. Not physically. Spiritually. He was what he had always been. A man who used power because he had no real strength. Outside, Ava was greeted by a small group of women. Not protesters, not reporters. Just survivors. One held a sign that read, "Your fight spoke for all of us." Ava walked to her car, hands steady, heels clicking like punctuation. When she sat in the driver's seat, she allowed herself one moment. Just one. She laughed. Not because it was funny, but because after everything he took, after everything she'd endured, after every whisper and message and courtroom breath, she had the last word. And it was one he could never delete. The first email she opened came from a law student in Vermont. "I watched your interview 3 times. It read, "Your strength made me rethink what I want to do with my career. I don't want to chase money anymore. I want to fight for women like you." The second came from a nonprofit asking if she'd be willing to speak on a panel about digital rights and privacy. Then another, and another. Ava could have said no. She could have walked away now with her head high and her case closed. But she didn't. Because something inside her had shifted permanently. She hadn't just fought back. She had lit a torch. And others were walking toward it. She created an organization called Clear Light. The mission was simple. Protect victims of digital abuse. Offer legal resources, psychological support. Digital cleanup services. Even something as basic as language. Words to help people explain what had happened to them when the world still didn't know what to call it. Her first fundraiser goal was $10,000. It hit $60,000 in 3 days. Liam's name barely came up anymore. The story was bigger than him now. Ava wasn't defined by the man who betrayed her. She was defined by what she did with the betrayal. She received letters from teenagers, retired nurses, even a man whose own images had been used against him by a vindictive ex. Every story different. Every pain familiar. Ava used the money from her court settlement to fund the first year of Clearlight. She hired lawyers who once ignored her emails, trained counselors, digital forensic analysts. For the first time, she wasn't reacting. She was building. One evening, Zoe, the first woman who had messaged her after the lawsuit broke, visited the new office. They sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes of flyers and laptops. "I used to think I'd never get over it," Zoe said. "But now I think maybe we don't need to get over it. Maybe we just build something better from the wreckage." Ava nodded. "We don't heal by pretending it didn't happen. We heal by refusing to let it define us." She looked around the room. The empty walls, the full inbox, the future still unshaped. Then she smiled. Not the tired kind. Not the brave for camera kind. A real one. Because for the first time in years, Ava Mercer wasn't just surviving. She was leading. It happened on a Tuesday. She was walking out of a cafe near her new office, a tote bag full of donated phones slung over her shoulder, when she saw him across the street. Liam. No suit. No audience. Just a hoodie, worn sneakers, and a man walking like he didn't want to be seen. For a moment, Ava stopped breathing. Not out of fear, out of memory. Her body still remembered the shape of him, the tone of his voice, the weight of the betrayal. But the sting was gone. What remained was recognition without power, like staring at a house she no longer lived in. He noticed her too. Slowed, considered crossing the street, then seemed to think better of it. He looked tired, not ruined, but faded, like someone the world had stopped listening to. And Ava? She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just met his eyes for the first time in over a year and didn't flinch. There was no hatred, no fire, no need to scream. Because what she wanted from him once upon a time, an apology, an ounce of shame, a crumb of regret, was irrelevant now. She had taken back what he tried to steal. Her power, her voice, her life. Liam looked away first, crossed the street in the opposite direction, vanished into the crowd. And with that, the final chapter between them closed. Not with fireworks, but with a woman who no longer needed anything from the man who once believed he owned her. Back at the office, she shared the moment with no one. It wasn't worth the airtime. But she did pause in front of the mirror in the hallway, looked at her reflection, at the lines that hadn't been there before, the strength in her jaw, the light in her eyes, a face not of a victim, but of a survivor who refused to let the worst thing that happened to her be the most important. She whispered, "I'm still here." Not for him, for her. Ava Mercer, 30, that's what the article said. The one pinned to the top of Clearlight's website. A year had passed since the verdict, since the interview, since the headlines. But her story still lived, not as a warning, but as a spark. The headline read, "The woman who turned her pain into policy." And it wasn't an exaggeration. Clearlight had helped over 200 women. Some had filed lawsuits. Others simply wanted their photos removed. Some just wanted to be believed. Ava had spoken at universities, at digital rights summits, even in front of lawmakers. Her words weren't fueled by rage anymore. They were powered by purpose. The apartment was quieter these days. She had moved once, then again. Not out of fear, but freedom. The last place still held shadows. This one had windows, light, plants she forgot to water. A cat she hadn't meant to adopt but couldn't give up once it curled up in her lap and purred like she was home. There were moments, sometimes late at night, when she would think of how close she came to letting it destroy her. Not the photos, not the shame, but the silence. The temptation to fold inward, disappear, swallow it all like poison disguised as pride. But she hadn't. She stood up, and because she had, others did too. On the bookshelf beside her bed was the iPad, the one that held the voice memo. She hadn't deleted it. Not because she needed the evidence anymore, but because it reminded her of something rare. That even in the darkest moment, some version of her had known to hit record, to protect herself, to tell the truth, to survive. She placed her hand on the screen, whispered, "Thank you," then turned away. Outside, the world was messy and loud and imperfect, but she had learned something no one could take from her. Healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just breathes. Ava stepped onto her balcony, coffee in hand, city stretched below. The same world that once tried to bury her now listened when she spoke, and she had so much more to say. The end wasn't revenge. It was rebirth.